Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday. It looks like we made it. So stoked everybody's here today. I hope the sun is shining. I hope the birds are singing. Hope the wind is at your back. Got a great show for you today. I got one that I think everyone's going to enjoy here. I want to introduce everybody and welcome to everyone to an extraordinary journey into the life and mind of Glen Dunzweiler, a storyteller who lives at the crossroads of empathy, entrepreneurship, and education. Glen is not just a filmmaker and producer, but a voice for those who are often unseen, a mentor to students standing at the edge of their advocate for practical knowledge that changes lives. With a background that spans from university classrooms to film sets, from TEDx stages to the streets, Glen brings a unique lens to human resilience, and his work carries an urgent message for our time. In his powerful documentary, yHomeless, Glen dives into the complexities of homelessness, not just to document it, but to humanize it, to challenge the narratives that often exclude the most vulnerable from our shared story. And his book, A Degree in Homelessness, Entrepreneurial Skills for Students, is a manifesto for the next generation, empowering young people to navigate the often treacherous financial landscape of higher education with clarity, courage, and resourcefulness. Glen's journey from academia to the entertainment industry reflects his commitment to teaching through storytelling, to awakening audience to realities that exist beyond conventional success metrics. His latest work, Deuce, promises to add yet another dimension to his mission of capturing raw, honest, and transformative human stories. Through every film, book, and speech, Glen embodies a powerful mantra: always be respectful, never be afraid. He's here to help others grow into spiritual, strategic, and economic wealth, one story at a time, one lesson at a time. Join us as we explore the wisdom Glen has gathered from the homeless, from students, and from the creative front lines, and learn how he transforms challenges into narratives and inspires and provokes and uplifts all that he comes into contact with. Glen, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here.
It is good to be here. I'm super stoked you're here. And before we got rolling and recording here, we were having a really interesting conversation on how we both got to be here. And I thought I'd just kind of throw it back to you, maybe to fill in some background of the story, man. I gave you a nice introduction there, but I don't think it really does justice to who you are. Is there anything that I left out or you want to fill in?
Yeah. So how did I get here? I was a lighting and a sound designer for live entertainment. That was my first career. In the late '90s, the word on the street was if you wanted to get hired for the big shows, the big live shows in entertainment as a designer, you had to have a graduate degree. So I went to graduate school, and then out of that was this, well, I don't want to go to New York. I grew up in California. I like California. I want to go back to California or the West Coast at least. But having a degree that is from an industry that has a broken business model, live entertainment, really, you're not going to make money unless you're doing rock and roll concerts or industrials, so conventions. Theater is broken, but I had a degree in theater. It just became this struggle of, okay, how am I going to make money? And so I moved to Las Vegas, and then that company got bought out by another company, and then that company was really strange. I remember the guy hired me, and he said I had to re-interview for my job from the company I got bought out, and and I was the last one out of the shop to get interviewed, and he said, "All right, great, good to have you on board," and he smacked me on the butt, and I thought,
Whoa.
that's strange. So I go to the other guys, and these are shop guys. These are blue collar. Even though I had gone to grad school, no one cared. You start back in entertainment, they're meant, especially in Las Vegas, it's meant to pull people off the street and train them. So my graduate degree never meant anything. So these hardcore shop guys said, "Hey, did that guy smack you on the butt?" And he said, "No, what are you talking about?" I said, "Man, I got to get out of here." So I just started applying, just hustling, hey, I have this degree, and I found out that the UNLV dance department, or sorry, the theater department didn't have a sound design course. And I had an MFA, had a terminal degree in the subject. I thought, well, the university will let me teach it. So, hey, let me teach it. And that they liked me. They didn't have any money though. And they said, but the dance department has a new opening for a visiting assistant professor. And they actually needed a resident lighting and sound designer. They said, you should apply. So I applied and I got it. So I got out of the butt smacking guy. And I'm all of a sudden, I go from working in a shop and pushing boxes to being a university professor in 2 weeks. Never having wanted to be a university professor. I just had to get out and succeed. And so ever since then, my life has I say professionally, my life peaked in 2004 with that job at UNLV. And then it's just been a struggle through different things. I mean, I got caught up in the housing crisis to 2008, lost a house in 2004 or 2012 out of it. And that's what got me into understanding what homelessness was in the United States. That's what got me into filmmaking. I got married, and my mom was always on me to have a good job with insurance. So once that contract at UNLV was up, I took a position at UC Riverside. They needed a resident lighting and sound designer. So I was there, and I thought, all right, this is stability. This is what my mom wants. This is what everyone wants. And then I got in a motorcycle accident, broke my leg and hip. And fortunately, the university didn't fire me, but I had to recuperate. And then the girlfriend that I was seeing decided that she was going to stick around. So I kind of owed her. And then she moved me into her place to rehabilitate. And then she said, hey, you want to buy a house? And this is in 2006. Hey, you want to get married? And I just thought, all right, well, this is the success story, right?
Yeah.
But you get married for the wrong reasons, it doesn't work out. And you buy a house because a realtor tells you this is what you need to do, and you don't know the game, and everyone's getting taken advantage of in a big way, but you don't know that's coming around the corner. It doesn't work out. And then you become a university professor because you're just trying to get out of some guy smacking you in the butt. It doesn't work out. so you make these life choices, and then you think, all right, well, what do I really want in life, and how am I really going to succeed? Because it's been a wild ride. I've been hit by distracted drivers more than 6 times
Whoa.
on a motorcycle. More than 3 times. It's really hurt my body. And I always say life is chaos. But out of that, talking about films, my newest Deuce, it's a feature length narrative feature film, but I'm looking for funding for it. But in the meantime, I thought, what am I going to do? So I made this animated film short, and it took me 3 years because I got hit again in January 2022, and it messed me up. Didn't break anything, but a lot of soft tissue damage. I'm still going to physical therapy for it. But on October 10th, because I've just buckled down, you need to succeed. You need to be out there. You need to be relevant. My new animated short film, The Bag, it's public on YouTube, and it's on the film festival circuit now. And I released it on October 10th, and it's doing well. And again, it's the same thing. It's kind of success out of poverty. It deals with a guy that he's sleeping on the street, and an addict tries to steal his stuff, and he gets his bag ripped. And when all the people that I talk to on the street, their whole lives are in this bag that they carry with them. And so it deals with the anxieties of what that means to have everything taken away from you and vulnerable. And then it also deals with how he's now on his search for a replacement bag. And so he's asking the public, and it's also a story about how the public, the proper public, the housed public interfaces with him, right? And the one guy that kind of gives him a chance is in danger of receiving the brunt of this guy's frustrations, right? And we've all been there, right? In my my work to kind of solve homelessness, which really started in 2010, people always are just worried about that interaction of interfacing with a homeless person. Well, what if they're a criminal? What if they're on drugs? What if? And so it kind of deals with that, and hopefully, it's a comedic and respectful way, and hopefully it inspires people to look at those interactions a little differently. Because what I've found, the only solution we have out of homelessness is a rebuilding of our families and communities, because our families and communities don't give up on us. And what we've built in the United States out of the degradation of family and community, and our us investing ourselves out of shelter, like the 2008 housing crisis is a perfect example. We're in a rough state, and we're not going to get better. It's just going to be as bad. So the bag helps maybe open up some of those interactions to maybe get something better. In my TEDx, like I said, it's not what can you do, it's, well, what can you do? What, because it's going to be on you. It's not, it starts with you. I call it direct positive action. That's,
Wait,
I think, the
I want to
solution.
pause you right. Let me pause you right there for a minute,
Yeah.
Glenn, because I think there's so much cool information coming there, but I think there's a lot of different threads we can pull on.
Sure.
And like in the beginning of the story, like it's interesting to me to get to hear the way in which the world pulled you. Like you had this idea coming out of school. You were working at this place, it didn't work out. Then all of a sudden you're at the shop, then you become a university professor. And in some ways, it seems to me the life that was happening to you became a scaffolding for the movies you were going to make, or at least the topics that you were going to investigate. Let's start off with like that first movie that you made. I think that like there's so much rich information there, and then we can move on to do moving forward. But why homelessness? Like what at what point, if we can just back up a little bit, at what point in time did you decide to make that movie, and why?
So I got cut back at work at UC Riverside. I think we all went to 80% contracts or 75% contracts, because the universities had invested in all of these housing markets, and they all tanked. So the universities lost money. They don't have money to pay their people, staff or faculty. So I couldn't make my mortgage. I just bought a house 2 years before, and I called the bank and I said, hey, I'm being a responsible citizen. I got this job. I made this investment. I took this bet. I'm buying this house. I have this monthly mortgage payment. In about 3 months, I'm not going to be able to pay it because I'm going to get cut back to 75% income. And they said, after just not talking to me and me just being tenacious, I finally got someone that admitted. She said, we will not talk to you until you stop paying us. Whoa, what? That's not what I was taught. I was taught from my grandfather to be an upstanding citizen, to pay my debts, to curb the trauma. What are you talking about? And then I realized what they were asking me to do is ruin my credit, but prove to them that they weren't going to get paid. That's the only way. They wouldn't believe me. The only way I could convince them that I couldn't pay them was to not pay them at that moment. And then I realized, well, wait, I remember what it's like to get into an apartment. You have to have good credit. So now I'm conceivably going to lose this house, and I'm going to destroy my credit doing it. So I won't even be able to get into an apartment. And I'm a university professor, and I'm supposed to be doing the right thing. I'm doing the right. This is what my mom told me to do. This is what my dad told me to do. This is what my grandpa told me to do. This is what society in general told me to do. And then that's when I started realizing, oh, this is a rig, and I don't know the game. And then I started investigating, because I was in danger. I never went homeless. I'm too tenacious. I renegotiated that loan. They hung up on me for probably 2 years, and I just kept at it, right? what are we doing? What are we doing? Not everyone has that. So I'm not going to go homeless, but because I was threatened to be homeless, I decided I'm going to find out what the heck's going on in this country right now. What is this homelessness thing? Because to me, the homeless were always drug addicted or mentally ill. That's the story we
Right.
had, especially in 2010.
Right.
I never thought about homeless people. And then I realized, oh, wait, maybe homeless people are university professors that didn't know what they were doing getting into a loan because they didn't know the game. They just knew they were supposed to play the game. And that's what got me into making the movie yHomeless and filmmaking, because I knew as a lighting designer and a sound designer, I knew what the thing needed to look like and what it needed to sound like. And I wasn't a filmmaker, I was live entertainment, but then I started learning cameras once I knew what it needed to, what the result needed to be. And then I just started learning backwards from there. And that was a storytelling device. As you said, I all storytelling all the time. Film is just another medium to get to people, and it sometimes your story can be live, sometimes your story can be a podcast, sometimes your story can be a film. All of it works. You just have to figure out entrepreneurially how you can get the meaningful story that you want to tell to people, and then how you can make it sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. So then I know that feeling because I had a mortgage in '06. I bought at the top of the market in '06, and I bought a condo for like 320, and a few months later it was worth like 270. And I remember I was a UPS driver for 26 years, and I remember that same conversation with Bank of America. Like, look, I can't make this. I'm dying over here. And they said something to me like, looks fine on paper. You haven't missed any payments. And that same thing hit my head. Oh, you're telling me to start missing payments. You'll talk to me. And that's what I told the guy. I go, okay, so you want me to start missing payments and then you'll do it. He goes, no, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I was like, that's exactly what you want me to do. And I hung up on that guy. And sure enough, like I didn't want to do that. Like I was taught the same thing as someone who gets up, you know, the red-blooded American, and gets up, you go to work, you pay your dues, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. But you know what? Sure as heck, man, I missed a few payments. Those guys were banging on my door. Hey, what's going on? You need some help over here? You know,
Yep.
and at that point in time, and you know, they say if you sit at a poker table and you don't know who the mark is, then you're the mark. I was the mark. You were the mark. Every
Yeah.
American has been the mark, and the banks have just been playing us, man. Like
Yeah.
groundswell, in my opinion, of populism, they call it, has just come up, and people are starting to get nervous now. It's like they were able to whack-a-mole a little bit some of the people in 2008, but what we're seeing in 2012, 2020, 2016, 2020, all this thing blowing up all over the world is the game is rigged, and you are the mark, man. So like I what you were saying resonates so deeply with me, and I'm so glad that you came out and you're telling this story. But what did you learn when you started going out on the streets? Did that change the paradigm for you? Like, oh, these people on the streets aren't drug addict, crackhead losers. These are people that didn't realize they were getting screwed. A lot of them. I mean, there might be some people that have a drug problem or a mental illness, but a lot of people, it's real easy to fall into that crack and realize that the government, the multinational corporations, the banks, they've been suckering people for a long time. And that's how you get a lot of homeless people on the streets. Is that something you found when you were out there?
Yeah. Um, the thing I did find though, once we hit about 2012 and some people were able to make money again, that dream of being able to exploit people yourselves came back. And so the machine just started back, you know. And
Yeah.
I think that we still have that now, where there's still, we hold on to this idea that, yeah, it may suck right now, but we have the ability to
Right.
exploit people ourselves. So we're going for that. And I, that's what the conclusion I've come to is, that's the game, but you have to
Yeah.
learn how to succeed in that game and then
Yep.
subvert that game, hopefully. And then you can start changing the game. But you got to learn the game first. You got to play the game first. And just, we've seen it now with this election. You hit you try and win people over with feminism, and it doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't, because we're so geared towards making money. That is
Yeah.
that's our validity in life. How much money do you make? What do you do? How successful are you?
What do you do?
That's our key. Everything else is secondary, right? Everything else comes, we can have high-minded ideas once we're in a position where we are comfortable and we have already exploited whoever. It doesn't even have to be another American. It can be the Chinese building our computers for us, or it can be whatever it is. So yeah, my journey has turned when I found demographics of the homeless, mentally ill, sad, poor, poverty, coming from bad places, some middle class, some business people, some escaping abuse, some children running from their family life. All of it. It's all these people in different areas have different specialties of homeless, let's say. Like, for example, when I was in Portland, because that's a Portland, Oregon, that's a West Coast train line goes up to Seattle. And so you have a whole bunch of homeless youth that are addicted to drugs, and they're just riding the rails from San Diego up to Seattle, San Diego up to Seattle. So their demographic was different than, let's say, Memphis, which had a lot of, because you have historical segregation in Memphis, and you have a lot of black poor. When the housing market hit hard in 2008, it hit the black community first because they were the poorest. So you had a lot of black homeless in Memphis. Different in San Diego, right? Different flavors. But the only thing that is successful for me, and I covered this in my TEDx, I met a woman in Riverside, California. I was screening my documentary at homeless shelters, and I just struck up a conversation with her, and she was trying to get into the shelter, and she was probably in her mid 50s by then. The way she got homeless is she quit her job to help her mother, because her mother couldn't take care of herself, so moved into the condo with her mother. And then when her mother died, she had no income, and they were gonna the condo was gonna get sold, or the contract was over. So she was sleeping behind a grocery store. And after talking to her, I realized that she wasn't the homeless that we think of, right? The mentally ill, the drug addicted, the whatever, the violent, the bad choices, the unworthy. And
Mm.
so I went to my wife and I said, I can't. We have. I know you told me not to bring any homeless people home that when I've done this documentary, but we have to do something. I can't let this woman sleep behind a grocery store. And we got her back, right? It caused a lot of problems in my home life because my wife was in some ways jealous of the attention. She also didn't like this foreign person, even though she was a nice older lady. She was a church lady. She had a, a ministry, a musical ministry that she would take to other churches. Apparently, that still was something that my wife didn't want in her house. But I, she let, we negotiated, right? I was very insistent that this needed to happen, and she let me be insistent. And we got her back. It took time. I bought her a bus pass, a monthly bus pass, and I bought her phone minutes so she could call for job interviews and get to the job interviews. And she got a job within a month and a half, 2 months. And, she was sleeping in a room in our house. And then it took about 9 months, but she got herself to a point where she could move out. So we got someone back, right? That's what it takes. And it takes that interaction to say, oh, is this person a threat to me or not? Do I want to help someone or not? And that's hard. That's hard for people because people have ideas and judgments about poverty. And we don't like poor people here. Poor is not successful. So even poor people don't like poor people. That's one of the things I also found out, right? Uh, so yeah, it is just about that human interaction, which I've always, that's my magic power that I guess you were saying, no, something about your life is more spiritual, or I think that I
Yeah.
connect with presidents and homeless people in the same way. It's kind of this equal footing. I don't have any, no, there's no power dynamic with me ever. We are equal because we both have legs and arms and a head. We're done. We're equal. And that's, I think, what I found is the solution. Plus, you have to figure out how to economically make it sustainable. I always tell people I almost went homeless trying to help the homeless. Even after the bank situation and I made the documentary, my life was falling apart, lost the house, didn't want to teach anymore, lost the marriage, came to Los Angeles, and I bought into this idea that, okay, I'm going to become the happy homeless guy. I'm going to try to change the world, and I'm going to try to get people to connect with homeless people, street by street, homeless person by homeless person, and I'm going to get paid as a public speaker to do that. And I listened to a public speaking company sell me on their courses and their publicity. There was a chink in my business model, though. No one wanted to pay me to speak about homeless people because there's no joy in speaking about homeless people. People think
Mhm.
there's no joy. So I almost went homeless trying to help the homeless. It's like, you can't do that because you can't be helpful. You can't, you got to figure out how to make it sustainable. You have to work within the system that everyone buys into, and then slowly start to subvert that system into a way that you feel okay succeeding in, because it's a system, and you better buy into it. We've been buying into it since this country was founded.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's I call it the padded 2x4. You know, you get smacked in the face with this 2x4, but you know, it's what it takes to be awakened to the reality of how life works. And you may look back on those times as horrible times or difficult times, and they probably are both, but it's also a glorious time because you've been chosen to be awakened to something that can make a difference. Like, now that you're aware of something, it's very difficult to go back to sleep on it. So you're at least looking for these particular circumstances. You're at least looking for these opportunities, and something inside you changes, right? Like you begin to have a little bit more empathy. You begin to understand, like, hey, maybe this is kind of a different version of me out there. Like, this could have been me. If these circumstances happened to me, that probably could have been me. And when you see yourself as that other person, it's a lot more difficult to be so judgmental. It's a lot more difficult to have these, you know, these incredible feelings of what a loser that person is, or what a big dummy they are, you know. And I think that is not only, I think that the message that you have in that film is contagious, and that is subverting the system towards a more towards a more view of empathy on some level. Was that the message that you wanted people to get from that film?
So for yHomeless, I always looked for a solution, but it was more of an exploration
Okay.
and kind of saying, no, really, let's look at this population. And then with me living, trying to be homeless for a month as I slept in my car, and you getting to watch me lose my mind very quickly as all of those creature comforts are taken away. Hopefully that's, you get to empathize with me because you see me and you think, oh, that's a nice guy. That's a nice white guy, right? Hey, he's well spoken, and
Mhm.
he's kind of handsome, and he's non-threatening, right?
Right.
I can relate to that guy. Whoa, that guy is losing his mind in just a month.
Mhm.
Oh, that guy is kind of scary. Oh, that guy, what do you mean he misses his wife? What do you mean he's now talking about human needs and wants from the standpoint of what a homeless person has to deal with when they don't have four walls around them and privacy, right? That's kind of creepy, but he's a nice guy. But he, so it's kind of, that was it was hopefully the window into the reality of what this population is. And the population is as varied as the population that is in housing right now. I've been hit by cars, and when you don't have your health, when you can't walk, things get pretty dire pretty quick, right? How do you, this last time I got hit, I was at a stoplight waiting for my left-hand turn, and this driver turned too sharply, made her left too sharply into my lane. And so just crammed me. I wasn't doing anything. When I moved to LA, I decided I was going to get back on a motorcycle and I was going to drive like everyone was out to kill me all the time. And that worked for 6.5 years until they started hitting me when I was stopped. You know, you just think, well, yeah, what do you do? Life, we like to build this stability around us, and that society gives us some stability, but we drive these multi-thousand-pound vehicles that can cripple us in a second. And we just accept that and we don't think about that. And I'm very fortunate in that I am constantly reminded of that. Right? I had in January 2022, I had my mojo working in Los Angeles. I had consistent income. I had enough money left over to work and push on these projects, doing the entrepreneurial thing, trying to figure out who's going to pay me for what to public speak. I thought the book Degree in Homelessness, I think it had a shot with high school students, but then COVID hit, and so all that stuff got canceled. So I was delivering food, right, and it was subsidized by all of the DoorDash and whatnot. You'd make good money. I made better money hourly than I ever did as a university professor delivering food. And that's what I was doing for the cash to push me through. And then this lady in a split second not only ruined my vehicle and my ability to ride my vehicle, but ruined me physically and my ability to make money. And you just think, oh yeah, this is how people go homeless, right? This is how the structure, the society that we buy into, this is how fragile it is. And it also gives me the great opportunity to say, all right, they didn't kill you this time. Again, they just maimed you. Now what? Right? So when I stood up, when the paramedics got there and pulled me out from under my bike, and they said, well, can you stand up? And I said, I don't know. Do you want me to try? And they said, yeah, let's do it. And they pulled me up, and I as soon as I bear weight, and so I'm not leaning on them. The paramedic says, he can bear weight. We're not taking him to the ER, because they had just had an outbreak of COVID. It was on the back end of COVID. Wow. Still, and they didn't want to give me COVID too. So they didn't want to take me to the ER. And I remember standing and just saying, looking up and saying, I'm alive. And the paramedics were laughing. I said, man, this isn't my first rodeo. And this time they didn't break anything. We're good. I'll figure this out. And so that also just gives me this tenacity. My sister calls the Dunzweilers cockroach people. Like, you can't kill us. So I guess I'm being the best cockroach person I can be.
Yeah, you're right. It's interesting to talk about not only what happened, but to see it as a metaphor for uncertainty. We're going to wake up and go through our day and we worry about these little things that may or may not happen. But the truth is, we trade a lot of our liberty for security, for this idea of safety. You know what I mean? And it's not guaranteed to you, man. You could go out, get hit on your bike, and that can be it for you. You could be homeless. You could end up in the graveyard, end up in the hospital, lose God's gift of mobility. Like, we're not given this idea of uncertainty. It seems like your relationship with uncertainty gave you a really incredible gift on how to move in the world today.
It does. It makes people angry because my life is I have a very absurdist view, right? Absurdism grew out of nihilism. It means nothing. You could get eaten by a bear at any moment. It doesn't, there is no meaning to the world, but it's also a very negative view. And so absurdism grew out that said, yeah, life means nothing, but why be sad about it? Just go. just do whatever you do and enjoy your presence. When I was teaching and buying a house and getting married, I was obviously working for a future, which is what we're told to do. And that future never
Right.
came. And my now was hell. I never liked owning a house. I felt like I was a slave to that house. It was a 1953 bungalow that just kept breaking down. And so I was always under the water. I was always working on something on that house. It was taking all my time. I remember mowing the yard when I got home in the dark. And I thought, is this what homeownership is? This sucks. You know? So I tell people now, if you want to invest, I say, look, live in a tent and buy gold. Don't keep the gold in the tent, right? Because it's going to get stolen. Someone's going to steal it. You have to figure out some place to secure it, but just pay for the gold. And then, because for some reason, people love gold. For millennia, we just keep finding it valuable. It's a metal that's soft and pretty. I don't know, but people keep liking it. So that's my bet. Just buy gold and then live as low as possible. I'm a minimalist now because I really just look around and I say, what do I need for right now? What is my immediate joy? Because that's the only thing that matters. I could get hit by a distracted driver walking out my house, and I have. So I know that's a real thing, but I'm not going to get sad. And since I'm a forced pedestrian for the past 3 years, what joy can I get out of being a pedestrian? Oh, I can look at flowers. I live in Southern California, and that is amazing weather, right? We have the weather.
Yeah.
Mother Nature is not trying to kill us every day, every season. We got earthquakes. Sometimes that's bad, but in general, it's brilliant to walk outside. So that is my immediate joy. For me, motorcycle riding was always meditative. That was the thing that I did that kept me present, that kept my fear and my anger and my whatever in check. I just need to focus on doing this thing now. Now I don't have that. That was the one thing. Obviously, family stuff doesn't work for me. I don't want to be married again. Housing stuff doesn't work for me. A stable job doesn't make me happy. So what makes me happy? All right. Well, motorcycle riding made me happy for 6.5 years from 2015 to 2022. And now that's even taken away from me. What do I do? So I look at flowers. So exercise. Hey, I can still walk. Thank God I'm alive. She didn't break anything. Not like the Durango in 2005, which broke my leg and hip and I was in a wheelchair, right? Like it's not that time. Yeah, your soft tissue's all messed up. Got to work on it. Yeah, your legs go numb, but they still work. Try to get them not to be numb. What's the joy? All right, I ran a 1/4 mile. See if you can do that 3 times a week. All right. Hey, I'm feeling better about running. I'm enjoying running now. Oh no, and now I'm walking too much and your feet are messed up. All right. What is my joy? Right. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
you got to go. You just got to go because the alternative is awful. Being sad is awful.
Yeah. I think it speaks to the idea of anxiety and depression and understanding that we have a choice. I forgot who's depression is being trapped in the past and anxiety is being trapped in the future. But if you live now and if you look at the world around you, like there's a lot of things that you could be thankful for. And if you have your freedom and you have, if you have freedom and you have your health, man, you got a lot. You have a lot more than a lot more people. And it's a great place to begin, and it's easy to get more thankful for when you already started thankful. So yeah, I think it's a good advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Always. I look for joy. I started handing out, I picked up some part-time work as I was rebuilding my life from getting hit. I picked up some part-time work at a library here locally in
Nice.
Burbank. I live in Burbank, California. And those people didn't like their director. They were so sad. Every day I thought, okay, my job is to give these people some kind of joy. That wasn't my job. I was a library monitor. So I got to walk around and make sure that people observed the social norms of the library. So we're usually talking about me interfacing with homeless people that have just kind of given up, they're angry, and they're doing something because of mental illness or because of bad habits. And so I'd have to talk to them. But other than that, I would just go around to everyone on that shift and I would give them what they needed. What do you need? Do you need to vent to me? Do you want to hear a funny story? Do you want to hear about my life? And I would just try and give joy. And I made these cards that to remind them. I said, check out these cards. And I've had them printed up and it said, what gives you joy? What gives you immediate joy? Tell yourself, tell me, tell someone else, because being on the happy side of your brain is a lot better than being on the sad side of your brain. So what can you do? It can be a little thing. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be in the future. It has to be right now. What can you do right now to get on the happy side of your brain? Because being on the happy side of your brain feels a lot better than being on the sad side of your brain.
Yeah, it's true. What about this new project you got coming up, Deuce, man? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So my friends that I was a professor at 3 places, UNLV, UC Riverside, and then the last place was CSU San Bernardino. And a guy was floating through class. He was floating through that school. He was an older student named Guy Stetley Jr. And Guy grew up in Chicago, south side of Chicago, rough, like grew up with criminals. He was pretty much a criminal. And he just, since I was a younger professor and he was a older student, we were more friends than professor student relationship. And he would tell me these stories, and they just, things like when he was in high school, he was getting high with his principal in the back of his cousin's car in the high school parking lot. And I'm just going, like, and he would tell these stories, and it just kind of puts a spin on, and it's a look into a world that I don't think America thinks exists, but some people know it does. And so I was working with him, or he came to me once I moved to LA, and he moved to LA. And he said, I want to work with you again. I did a short film, and he was my cinematographer for that short film. He said, I want to work with you again. I said, yeah, what do we want to do? And he didn't kind of know. And I said, well, you have these amazing stories. What if you tell me these stories, and then I will make a screenplay out of it, and then we'll try and get this thing funded. And so we started on that path where he gave me the characters, he gave me the stories, and then I'd fill in trying to make a narrative out of it. And it's this journey of him, because of the people he knew in Chicago, specifically one, his girlfriend, got him out of that environment of not thinking your life is worth anything and not thinking about the future, right? So he was, now that I am where I'm at and I'm looking at my life only in immediate gratification, but the positive side, in Chicago, it's kind of him growing up, it was immediate gratification. My life is worth nothing. It doesn't matter anyway, right? It's kind of that nihilistic side. She got him out of that, and he went to Tacoma, and he found Tacoma, Washington, and he found that the skills that made him a good hustler in Chicago made him a good legitimate businessman in Tacoma. And he's like, what is happening? And it's the environment, right? It's the outlook.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this urban escape story, and it's this success through poverty, or success out of poverty story. And it's his journey. We got it to a point. It's a screenplay. I ran a budget and a schedule. We've got a storyboard trailer for it. And now it's always that idea of, okay, how is this thing going to get funded? I had a line producer work on it, built a budget and a schedule for it. He calls it about a $3 million film. He said, it's easier to make $1 million film than it is a $3 million film, because it's easier to get the funding for 1 million than 3 million. So maybe you should think about scaling Deuce down a little bit. And then, of course, I get hit by a car. So, and I'm working on another project. So Deuce is out there. Deuce is the characters, and the stories are out there. When I was pitching it around, and I was talking to a guy from the poor side of Miami, and I'm telling him these stories about Deuce, and the guy, he looks at me and he says, "He told you about that?" Right? So it's this untapped reality that very few people know, that I think is so evocative. It's kind of that behind the scenes of the banking industry, right? We're told the world works this certain way, but then there's this whole other way. And the banking world has their rich way of doing it, and Deuce has his own poverty criminal world of looking at it, so it's a little bit underworld, and it's a dramedy. My stuff is always, you look at the funny, grab the funny out of the sad stuff. That's the way I write. That's my writing style. So yeah, that's Deuce. I need to get back up. Deuce keeps saying, Guy keeps saying, Deuce was a nickname. Part of the strategy is he has 3 names, and depending on who calls him what name, he knows where he met them from and how they view him. So if they call him Deuce, he knows where they met him and how they see him. If they call him Guy, he knows where he met him and how they see him, or how they heard of him, right? If they call him Junior, because his name is Guy Stutley Jr., he knows that they know him from being a kid, right? So who thinks of the world that way? But in that kind of underground element, you start looking at that. One of the things I do is I have a podcast called Difficult Questions, where I talk about these things that other people are afraid to talk about. And I got an inspiration for the next episode, because I was always taught that my dad would always say, safety is relative and not guaranteed, right? There's no guarantee that you're going to be protected. And so I carry that with me through the friends I was with, the criminal friends that I grew up with, the mechanic friends that I grew up with, the blue collar people, my parents, my family. I always have to look out for myself. I was a lifeguard. I'm the stopgap. I'm the thing that stops bad things from happening, and bad things are going to happen. But I realized I was on the bus yesterday and I had forgotten my wallet. And I thought, oh no, because I have been arrested once. And I realized that if the police need you to be a criminal, you are a criminal. And so you never when you're out and about in the world, never give people an excuse to define you, right? And so I'm freaking out that I forgot my wallet, and I know I need to get home as soon as possible. And I'm on the bus, and I see this woman walk across the street in front of the bus in flip-flops and a sundress, looking down at her phone like she doesn't have a care in the world, right? That's a victim. You are ready to be victimized. And I thought, oh, we have in this country different expectations of protection, right? When you move to Tacoma, Washington, you have this expectation of protection. You can do these things without the fear of someone coming up on you and taking your car, or the fear that you have to check this person out because he may want to extort something from you. But in South Side of Chicago, there's not an expectation of protection. Where I grew up in the South Sacramento, there was not really an expectation of protection. But in Burbank, California, downtown, there's this expectation that everything is going to be nice. And I love the inner, oh, sorry, my headphone fell out. Hold on. I love the interplay of those two worlds. And that's a lot of that's the backbone of Deuce.
I love it. It's such an American story of like the hero's journey on some level, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. I see it as you can have all the right things ready to go, but if it's not the right time, things don't get made. But that sounds to me to like a story whose time is rapidly approaching to be put on the big screen. Like we are looking for people in this country that grew up in a way that may not have been real savory, but have found a way to navigate the world. And isn't it interesting that he can go from the South Side to Tacoma and crush it as a legitimate businessman? Like maybe some of these things we're learning in schools aren't the best way to become a businessman. Maybe you got to learn over here. Maybe these lessons that our grandfathers, these lessons that our friends on the street, that our neighbors, that the guy down the way, like, or the woman down the way, maybe these are the real teachers. And if you look at it from that perspective, maybe we're the teachers that are bringing up the next community, man. That movie sounds amazing, man.
Thanks. Well, in my first book, Things I've Learned from the Homeless, again, I'm trying to flip the idea that we have
Yeah.
nothing to learn from people that are on the street, that are poor. Are you kidding? I've learned so much from people that have had everything taken away from them or have lost everything. You become, back to your spirituality, you become very aware of what your joy in life is, and you hopefully focus on the ones that were successful. They focused on that and they worked to repeat and get out of that. Sometimes it got convoluted because they gave up and their immediate joy was with drug addiction, because you can fall into that, right? You fall into the hole of my life sucks, the best I can do is this high and this is what I'm going to look for. But the ones that got out, I love my family. I want to get back to I need stability for my family. That's what I'm going to do. I love health. So that's what I'm going to do. I love God. So that's what I'm going to do. People slam organized religion, and I'm not an organized religion person. I grew up United Methodist, so Protestant, but it didn't really speak to me. But I'll tell you, it's about finding your center. And if you don't have a center, if you don't have a place from where every other decision grows out of you, religion can be that center for you, right? That's why so many missions work with homeless people, and they give them a program and they give them the structure, and they say your center, your decision making all comes from the teachings from this book. And some people need that. Some people need that structure. Your center can be yoga. Your center can be football. Your center can be motorcycle riding. But you have to focus on that, and that's what the success is. And Guy, going back to Deuce, he would call himself observant. That's his superpower. He said that's what I grew up as. I wouldn't call myself a criminal. I call myself observant. And I don't know that he has a center. I think he's still, and he may hear this podcast and he may disagree with me, and that'll be a great moment for us to talk through. But I don't think he has a center. I think he's still looking. I think that growing up hustling, you don't have a center. Growing up in poverty, you don't have a center, or it's very hard to have one. Someplace that calms you, someplace that you get to decide things from. And that's also what I'm trying to give people in my book, Degree in Homelessness. I'm trying to give their center business skills. Like, you got to not flounder and worry about how you're going to make money. You have to figure out how to make money. So this is your center. And some people, their center is capitalism. We know them, right? Elon Musk, he's like very centered on having as much power and making as much money as he can. He's very good at it. And I had friends growing up, right? Specifically a friend that was really good at making money. And that was his center. He had a Facebook before there was Facebook. So he would literally take pictures of important people that he was going to go to a party and host a party for. and study their names and faces and their backgrounds. So then he could interface with them at parties. Like that's a strategic mind, right? That's a strategic mind for success. And he can't not think about that. So that's his center. What's your center, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that sometimes these places we find ourselves, if we brought up like religion or in order that you can build back to a place that is beyond what you could have been. You know what I mean? Like a metaphorical death on some level. Like everything has to be stripped away from you for you to really be aware of what you care about. And only then can you begin living a life worth living.
So I saw the movie Fight Club in 1999 in the theaters, and it really didn't do anything for me. Again, I hadn't hit my peak in life of 2004. But after 2004, that movie, I don't want it to be life, but I say Fight Club is life. And in a quote in that movie is, "We can do nothing until we lose everything." And yeah, I mean, I just pull from that. I keep pulling quotes from that film, and I just think, oh, I'm living this is life. I don't like it. It's very nihilistic. It's not a happy world, but to some extent, it's true. For me, it's very true, and I don't want it to be true, but I have to admit that yeah, I could do nothing until I lost everything, because I was building something that someone else told me was valuable, and until that all fell away, and it got taken from me or I lost it out of ineptitude, that's when I started to become awake to what I wanted to do, what was important, what worked, what didn't, why it didn't, what I was willing to do. You know, to be successful, a lot of times you have to kind of give up on your integrity. And that's been really hard for me too. You know, when you're talking about scaling a passive income, at some point, you may be stepping on else. There may be competition. There is a loser. And I have a hard time with that because in my heart of hearts, uh, I have liberal leanings, right? I care for people. And so I often wonder, all right, is my path in life to struggle? It's very Buddhist, right? I think the Buddhists come back to me. It's like, all right, life, yeah, it's about letting go and it's about struggling because you're not willing to make decisions that may hurt some other people or that may disregard some other people. And I think that that is a very privileged position to be in, to not have to be able to make money and not have to worry about exploiting others. And employees in general don't have to worry about exploiting others. They worry about being exploited, but the employers, in order for that business to succeed, end up exploiting others or not telling truths or telling people a good story about a product that's not quite true, or it was true once and it could be true, but in general, it's not really. I had an entrepreneur friend that said, you know, to tell something is true, it only had to happen once. So if you say my program can build you 10 times your income, you only had to have one client that built 10 times their income, and then you can say that. As I'm going through film festivals for the bag, you know, marketing, everyone wants to hear the good story. Everyone wants to know that you did good stuff. I know it's a good film. I've worked at it being a good film, but I have to prove it to others. And one of the ways that you prove things to others is by other people saying it's good. And by film festivals saying hey, you win an award. So now there is this industry in creative land with people that's supposed to be morally upright, where you have to pay for recognition and an award. And then somehow that good story makes you legitimate, right? You pay for entrance into a film festival for the chance of someone saying, good job. And then that film festival builds their business model off of your hopes and dreams, your gambling. So is that morally correct? Well, again, I almost went homeless trying to help the homeless. So I know that being just morally correct isn't enough. You have to figure it out. You have to maybe make some accommodations.
Yeah, it's a bend don't break sort of a model, like, and yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about that. And when you maybe I'm an idealist, or maybe I'm just naive in a lot of ways, and I think a lot of people may feel like me, but there's got to be a way where you can make money in a way that doesn't step on people. You know, and I think that's kind of where we are in the world today. Is people want that to happen, but I don't know. Is it possible, Glenn? Can we find a way to do that?
So I'm trying to find a way. I have my stop that says I won't do this, I will do this. My
Right.
landlady, Rita Green, the wallpaper queen. She was a starlet in the late 50s, early 60s in Hollywood, and then and married a comedian, a very popular comedian named Doodles Weaver, and uncle of Sigourney Weaver. And uh, he ended up killing himself. So Rita was on her own with two kids, and she started hanging wallpaper. But she is this gregarious woman, this friendly, lovely person that people want the experience to be around her. They've always wanted the experience. So she gets hired not for her wallpapering. She's a good wallpaperer, but people hire her to just have her in their presence.
Mm.
So there are people like that where you work hard, but you are also rewarded because people love your personality. And I think in those ways, you have people that can live their integrity and still build a following, or build a support network, or build a group. But then you have some people, like we've seen the horror stories of cult leaders, right? So what do you have to do in order to get people to follow you? So I think it's out there, and I would love to be Rita Green, the wallpaper queen, and I would love to be this amazing dancer from the late 40s, early 50s, starlet of the late 50s, early 60s, just positivity shooting out of her all the time. But I'm the happy nihilist, right? I'm the absurdist with my life. You know, Rita's never been hit by a car. I've been hit by a car a lot. I have different viewpoints, but how do I roll that into inspiring people? And I'm still working on it. Some people, I was on another podcast a few years ago, and the guy said, "Wow, I can see how both the left and the right don't like you." And I said, "Yes, that right there, that I I am somehow inspirational for the unlikable. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. We're working at it. People, I have a good time. We have a good time. This is what I'm good at. Because of my life, I have viewpoints that people don't want to hear. They want to hear the ideal. They want to hear the good story. So then my goal has been to find a good story that I can actually give them, right? Without hurting my integrity, without telling someone, no, 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 give me $1 billion and I will go to Mars. And then, well, I'm going to look cool. See this rocket that I just landed? That good enough, right? Or I'm going to have uh, driverless cars, which I think being hit by cars, I think that's an awful idea. But people love that because they feel that car safety is safety for people inside of the car and they don't want to drive. So they love this idea, this good story. Oh, you mean I don't have to do anything and I get to be in my little safety bubble? And he promises that and never delivers on it, or delivers on it and kills people, but he still says no, it's fine. He keeps trying to deliver on this vaporware, right? That's what they call it, things that never really exist. It's a promise. It's an empty promise, and people want the good story. They will continue to buy the good story. They don't want, not many people want Monty Python, right? Monty Python was the absurdist story. It was like, she's a witch, burn her, make fun of everybody, satirize everybody, see the ridiculousness in humanity, make fun of the church, make fun of everybody. Obviously they succeeded. Someone saw something in them. So I need to find my own brand of absurdist humor and ways of looking at life and my own immediate joy and direct action. And I need to find, I'm always just looking for the audience that wants to hear that. But I'm not afraid of the bad story. And people don't like that, right? People don't want to, it's about staying in the happy side of your brain. And not everyone wants to be an absurdist. Everyone wants to believe.
I love it. I think the absurdity is what, on some level, keeps you sane, when you start hearing these stories, but it's beautiful. Yeah, I can't help, whenever I think of Elon Musk, like, I think a lot of things, but I think it's also very interesting to think about rockets as a weapon system. And yet this thing might go to Mars one day, but you know what it can do today? It can bomb everybody. It's an advanced weapon. Like, we're building an advanced weapon system that's subsidized by the government, and everyone thinks we're going to Mars. Like, it's so absurd. Like, when you start thinking about it, you're like, oh yeah, we have Werner von Braun here, and this is the greatest rocket scientist since Werner von Braun. We're building a Starlink weapon system that can annihilate individuals by satellite. It's so amazing, but it's absurd at the same level to put this funny idea of like space travel. Hey, we're going to Mars, man. Or we could just kill everyone on the planet. Either way, same thing, rocket system.
Yeah. And funnily enough, that was covered in a 1980s movie with Val Kilmer called Real Genius. I don't know if you remember that, but
I don't think so.
They were developing a laser technology that in academia, they wanted the laser to work, but it was being funded by the military industrial complex. And then the whole, the third act of the movie was them subverting the military because it was a comedy. But yeah, it's about weaponizing technology, but it's funny because it's absurd.
And sometimes all you can do is laugh.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's out of control.
Yeah, because the alternative is just sad, right? And ultimately, we've built amazing stability for ourselves. You look at what society has done and what we have as protection to grow and to specialize and to think about larger things and to make movies, and what the animal kingdom is still doing, right? Subsistence. I need to eat now. I'm going to eat. I need to find my food. I need shelter now. I need to find shelter. And it's, so we've done amazing things, people that would not be able to live on their own are able to live and do things. Stephen Hawking was amazing and able to think his stuff and communicate his stuff because of the society around him. If we were back in the animal kingdom, that guy would just be done, right? And sometimes You are done, but sometimes you're not. I have a friend that's fighting cancer, and she's an amazing storyteller. The technology of cancer, of chemotherapy, her cancer keeps responding really well to chemotherapy, but they keep shrinking the tumors, cutting things out. And then once she's off chemotherapy, they come back because cancer wants her for some reason. But
Mm,
the miracle of modern medicine and her ability to kind of get in on that pipeline and make people spend money on her has kept her alive for another 2.5 years. And she's using it. She's telling amazing stories. She's inspiring people. Like, don't give up. Don't listen to get a fifth opinion, get a sixth opinion. And for what? I don't know. Cause again, what's her end look like? Who cares? She's rocking it right now and she will not give up. So that's that's great. Why hate on Elon Musk? Just don't worship him, but appreciate what he's done. If he gets you a contract, be thankful that you have money to eat. If you're working on his rockets, you work on your thing. You worry about what your moral compass is, and your moral compass is not what another person's moral compass is. You know, in the animal kingdom, they don't have uh, the luxury of a moral compass. We do, and then we all get different ones. Different societies are always going to fight for resources and control, and we're seeing that with this previous election. We're seeing that all over the world. People always ask, why can't we have a warless society? Well, because everyone wants to succeed, and there's not necessarily enough. Well, no one wants to give anything up for other people to succeed. Let me just put it that way.
yeah.
Everyone has you. Back to the story about bringing a homeless woman into our house. Well, what did that cost us? But my wife was not happy about it. In her mind, she needed all of the attention from her husband. And if she didn't get all of the attention from her husband, she was not happy. She needed all of the resources. And why shouldn't she fight for that? That's not my morality. And what I realized is that's why I can't be in a relationship, is I can't make someone feel special enough because I'm too busy connecting with homeless people or I'm too busy working on my projects, or that's I and yeah, why people always talk about, their children. They're always, you don't know what it's like until you have kids. And then, yeah, your job as a parent is to really care about those kids. But guess what? Other people have kids that care just as much about their kids. And you will undercut that person so your kids can survive. I listen to mothers talk about, don't mess with me when I'm a mama bear. And I think, yeah, you know what? Mama bears are killers. You don't even have to to mess with their cubs. You just have to accidentally be around their cubs and they will kill you. Is that what you want to be? Is that what you're aspiring to be? A killer? Just don't, and people do, and they take pride in that. And as a person that decided not to have children and was the best stepdad to two kids, I met them when they were 5 and 9 when I was married, and was around for 10 years. They had a good dad. They mainly lived with their dad. I was the best Glenn I could be. But I saw that these kids were better off than some other kids, and I didn't think that was cool. But they weren't my kids, so I could think about that. My wife could not think about that. Their father could not think about that. Their father needed to think about the success of my children. Because I always say, you care about you most. That's the in when I speak on my entrepreneurial skills for students. I say the goal is to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Because I say it's lifeguard rules, right? And when I was a lifeguard, you you had to make sure that you could save this person. And if they were panicking and if they put you in danger, you had to step back. And so there was always this fight. If they're not, don't let them drown you, because if they drown you, you're not a help to anybody. So I tell the students I talk to, I said, you care about you most. You have to, but take care of yourself so you can take care of others. And different people have different ideas of what taking care of themselves are. I have an entrepreneurial friend. Her whole goal is to own a jet. I think that's a waste of fuel. I think that's a waste of money. That's not but hey, man, if that drives you. Or I have another one that she loves 5-star hotels. She loves being pampered. The whole idea of socialism is you can't defend luxury, any luxury. Everyone gets a white shirt. That's it, because that's fair. Well, how do you play that out? So that's capitalism said, well, all right, well, if you can make the money, you can get whatever you want. And again, you care about you most. So I can't defend a 5-star hotel. I can't defend pedicures and manicures. I can't defend someone just making me feel good, but she can. And why shouldn't she? I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I think that's what allows us to live in this beautiful melody, albeit chaotic at times. It's still harmonious in its own way. And if you can see it, if you can see that multiple things can be true at once, I think it helps you navigate the world that we live in on some level.
Yeah.
You said that moral compass that each one of us is given, it changes from time to time. As you get older, all of a sudden, true north is over here now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It changes. And it's completely specific. And who's to say who is right? And society is just majority rule. So I remember listening to a guy that said he hated traveling to work for the Middle East in the Middle East because at 5 a.m, the call to prayer came over the loudspeakers throughout the whole city and would wake him up at 5 a.m. And he wasn't Muslim. So, but for Muslims, that is their center. That is their essence. That is their city. And who's to say they can't have that? Now we're running into, let's say, immigration problems. I think something in Switzerland, or I think it's Switzerland, is having problems with men that are having problems, men from North Africa getting mad that they're not being served first in restaurants before women, because in their culture that they grew up in, men are first. And in Switzerland, people have been battling that. So women aren't, or men aren't first. And we have that in this country as well. We have a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds with a lot of different priorities, and everyone is fighting for their own legitimacy and their own privilege and their own success. And that's the battle of life. The battle doesn't end. Just hopefully you can be respectful about it. But even then, sometimes emotions get in. And I personally have a problem with emotions. I've always tried to walk away from my emotions because they made me make, I would say, bad or questionable decisions. But then I have no friends, because friends depend on emotion. Friendship depends on emotion. Like, I like you, you like me. And I definitely don't have romantic relationships, because that is a series of bad decisions in my in my world of me on top of the mountain, right? I'm not making conscious decisions, I'm living emotional decisions. But we have emotions for a reason. I think the reason is Mother Nature is gaming us to propagate, right? That's what I think is happening. Other people love their emotions. Rita Green, the Wallpaper Queen, her emotion is love. She loves to love. Who's right? I have no idea. We just kind of coexist respectfully and then try to navigate who's in control when and why. and who gets to do what. I don't have the answers. That's again why I run that podcast, Difficult Questions, because I just love to explore the friction between two ideals. And I'm not saying one is right, and I'm not saying one is wrong. I'm saying I do what I want. That was one of the frictions in my marriage was I just wanted to do what I wanted. I didn't want to do what my wife wanted. She gets to do what she wants, but she doesn't get to ask me to like doing what she wants. Oh, wait, maybe that is marriage. Oh, wait, maybe I'm doing this wrong. I don't know. So yeah, but I realized that I wasn't making her happy and she wasn't making me happy. And then I got really angry with her and I started making bad decisions. Like, oh, you're going to accuse me of adultery? Well, if I'm going to get accused of it, I'm going to go do it. That's not a good decision, Glenn. But Glenn was angry, right? Glenn was like, I'm not liking this. I'm tired of this battle. You're always jealous and accusing me. You think I'm going to have a romantic relationship with this woman that I brought in, this homeless woman who's 10 years older than I am, no, I love you. All right. But and we weren't, let's say, romantically involved by then anyway. It's just like, I'm just going to go. Bad decision, Glenn. Like in 2015, my life was falling apart, right? I hadn't figured out to embrace the absurdism. I was making bad decisions left and right. Don't be Glenn. That's one of my inspirational things. A lot of my stuff, I was thinking about it last night. Don't be like me. A lot of my stories, okay, don't do this. And this is why. Okay, don't do this. I would like to get a few successes in once in a while, but I've got some good don't do this stories. And this is why. Don't buy a house in 2006. Don't listen to others. Don't get hit by cars. It goes on and on. But yeah, so for me, emotion is the bad thing. Everything bad came from emotion. And other people say, well, you're no fun. I don't drink. I've never been a teetotaler. I've been a teetotaler my whole life. And that bonding, there's some kind of bonding that happens with people when what I call is you validate their bad decisions, right? They're going to have a drink. You have a drink with them. Oh, now you're bonded in these bad decisions. Other people wouldn't call them bad decisions. Same with smoking, marijuana. No thanks. I like my sober mind. But that connection never exists for me because I'm always the outsider. And if you're always the outsider, what can you get done in a society? Right? If you are the proclaimed outsider, I always joke, I realized maybe 5 years ago that my role models were a combination between Fonzarelli from Happy Days, the A guy, without the womanizing, right? I didn't want the womanizing part, but just being your own person, living in a garage, and Clint Eastwood's High Plains Drifter, or Clint Eastwood, that character that just wanders into town and he's never part of anything. For some reason, I really, in my subconscious, gravitated towards that. And that's what I wanted to be. And that's what I am, for good or for bad, right? I'm the consummate outsider. I am outside. If you try to put me in a group, I don't want to be in your group. That group think. I was listening to George Carlin, and he was very much the outsider, but he was successful. He found a way for people to want to embrace what he was saying and the product that he was giving. How can I be like George Carlin? How can I be like George Carlin? How can I be like Monty Python? We're still working on it.
I think you're doing a tremendous job, Glenn. And the longer our conversation goes, the bigger the smile on my face, man. I love the fact that you're bringing up all these different ideas and different points. And I think we've covered, like, I feel like the hour and a half we've been through was like 5 minutes, man. I think anybody within the sound of my voice should go down and not only reach out to you and check out the movie that you made, but should, I what, like, they should check out the bag. They should try to start digging into Deuce. And I love it, man. I think that you have a really unique way of looking at the world, and beyond that, being a phenomenal storyteller, man. Thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, where can people find you? What do you got coming up, and what are you excited about?
Yeah. My name is a heck of a last name, but if you can spell it, you can find me. I am the only that I know, as far as Google is concerned, I am the only Glen Dunzweiler in the world. So glendunzweiler.com, everything is that's a hub for everything. So that's where you can find me. I'm on all social media. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, all under my name, Glen Dunzweiler. So that's the big hitch if you can spell my last name, Dunzweiler. And yeah, go check out the bag. It's my new short film. It's up on YouTube for free. It's my Glen Dunzweiler Productions YouTube channel, and it's 5 minutes of a kick in the pants. First scene is a lot of cussing because it's a fight scene, so beware of that. It's adult cursing. Second scene has a few curse words in it, but pretty tame. Other than that, it's a bus stop conversation and a meeting on a street corner. But the first scene is a fight, so it's a 1 minute ride. It's a 1 minute ride. So yeah, go check that out, please. That would be amazing to me. I just need eyeballs on that film. That is my voice. That is the way from front to back, I did everything except the voice acting. I hired amazing voice actors. They did the perfect characters, but that's written, directed, edited, animated. That is my voice. You want to know what Glen Dunzweiler is about? Spend 5 minutes with the bag. That's what I ask.
I love it, man. And what about the podcast? When does that air? Is that available on all platforms, or is it a weekly? Is it a daily? Is it a monthly? Okay.
Yeah, it's all platforms. I've been doing it since COVID, so about 3-4 years now. I can get out 1 episode a month. They're about 12 minutes. Sometimes I have a guest. Most of the time, it's just me talking into a camera. It's also on YouTube as video, but it's audio and on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere else you pick up your podcasts. And difficult questions with Glen Dunzweiler. I've been doing it. I can get 1 episode a month out. My goal is 2 episodes a month, and I've been doing that I did that last month, and I'm going to do it this month. So that's my goal.
Well, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, go down to the show notes, check out the bag, reach out to Glen. I hope, Glen, hang on briefly afterwards, but to everybody within the sound of my voice, I hope you have a phenomenal weekend, man. I hope you dig down deep and you become the very best person that you could possibly be, because the world is waiting to reward you if you're willing to have the courage to take some chances out there. That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Have a beautiful weekend. Aloha.